This is Josh Osborne, and this is the CI Tools weekly webinar where we talk about stuff to do with the CI Tools, hence the name. Today we're going to be looking at the Doors+Windows tool. This will be the third part of looking at sort of how to use the Doors+Windows tool starting from not knowing anything at all. So we did a sort of a general overview of the window and door objects and how to use them and that sort of thing in the first session. Last week in the second session we looked at creating Door+Windows styles using the style system and snap sizing. And this week we're going to look at the sort of the last piece of the major parts of functionality of the tool, which is scheduling. So we're going to create some schedules. We'll do stuff with notes in the schedules and show data and that sort of thing. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. If you have any questions at any point, please just enter those in the question panel, and I'll answer those as we go. I'll check about midway through and see if there's been any questions, and we can pick those up as we go. Just before I start, I also just wanted to mention that we have, I just want to basically let you know, if you are watching this, that there is currently a known bug that we are working on a fix for with the Keynotes tool, with the CI Keynotes tool in ArchiCAD 27. If you are using a Windows computer and you have the Keynotes palette open while you are working, going through and selecting windows and doors in a section window, it will cause ArchiCAD to crash in some cases. We are working on a fix for it right now, so we should have something soon for that. But if you have been experiencing that and you want to get around it, the easiest way to get around it for now is just close the Keynotes palette while you're doing that editing in section windows. And that will make it work fine, and then you can turn the palette back on again when you're in floor plan or when you're getting to doing keynoting and you're not going to be selecting windows and doors. So apologies for that. I know it's very annoying. We are working on a fix as fast as we can do, but that will get you through for now if you're experiencing that. All right, but with that out of the way, the Door+Windows scheduling tool. So I'm going to be using ArchiCAD 28 today, but everything that we're going to look at is also available in 27 and 26. So if you're using a slightly older version, you don't need to worry. So as you may know, obviously ArchiCAD has a built-in scheduling tool that will allow you to schedule windows and doors, but our Door+Windows tool also includes its own scheduling tool. This doesn't necessarily do things that the default window and door schedule can't do. It just does things in a different way, and it presents the schedule in a different way. So if the way that it does it is the way that you like, you can go ahead and use our window and door schedule to do it. I prefer it, obviously, but also a lot of customers do as well. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So to get to the scheduling, we go to the CI Tools menu, Doors+Windows Schedule Manager. And this will allow us to create some schedules. Don't worry too much about all of these settings at the moment. We're going to look at those in a bit. But for now, I'm just going to create a new schedule by hitting the New button here. Let's call it Schedule 1. And then we'll set the basic settings of this schedule. So the criteria is essentially choosing what we want to see in our schedule. So we can choose to show windows or doors or both. We can choose to filter by element ID if we like, so we can turn this on, and we could say, actually, we want this to only list anything where the element ID contains the letter D, or if you have some sort of prefix that you use for certain window or door types, and you want this schedule to do just those, you can include that here. And we can add multiple filters to this as well. So you could say contains D or contains W, let's say, and that will include any which match both of those. And you can also turn on this option here to filter by the type code as well. The type code is the thing in the typing that we looked at yesterday. So the different types have a type code that's part of them. This will filter on those as well if you want it to also. I'm not going to do that because I can't remember what my IDs are, so I'll leave that off. But you can use that filter for there. The layer combination option will let you essentially store a snapshot of what layers are turned on currently, and then only display the windows and doors that are in those layers. You can choose to sort by filter by story, so to show all the windows and doors, or to only show the windows and doors on certain stories. And you can finally also filter by renovation status, so demolished, existing or new down there. And then over on the right, we've got some collation option. This will make a bit more sense once you actually see it, but we can choose how we want to collate items that match in our schedule as well. So we'll come back to that in a bit. I'm just going to hit OK and let it generate a schedule. So since I made a new schedule, it says that there have been changes, because obviously there are, the fact that there is a brand new one there. So I'm going to say yes to upgrade that. This is an older project, so I choose to migrate as well. And that's going to generate the schedule for me. So you can see, oh, I already had, excuse me. I already had a worksheet with the same name. That's unfortunate. Let me do that again. So the way that it works is that it's going to create this schedule on a layout sheet, not a layout sheet, on a worksheet that we can then do whatever we want, which is probably going to be to place it on a layout. So that's what it's doing here. It's making that worksheet and then placing our schedule on it. All right, so this is the way that it lays out a Doors+Windows schedule. You can see we have this sort of gray outline here. That's denoting the shape of the page. So you can make sure that it fits onto the page that you want to put it on, the layout sheet that you want to put it on, rather. So that's what that grey outline is there. Generally, you won't modify that yourself. It's just there so that you can tell if it's the right size or not. But then we have our actual schedule itself. And you can see what we have here is we have elevation views of each of the windows and doors. They're all dimensioned. And then we're showing the ID of them below. So in my case, all of my window and door IDs have the story number first, and then a dash, and then the ID number of the actual door itself. So 101, 102, 103, etc., and then 2, and so on. So you can see those are displayed that way. So if this is the sort of schedule that you would like to have, our Doors+Windows tool can do a good job of this. You might think that we've got an error happening over here. Actually, what is happening is it's just scheduling an empty opening, because that's still a window or door, so it still schedules that. So if you didn't want that to happen and you're using some of those, you can just filter out things that have EMT in them using those criteria settings, and that won't be included. The other thing that I just want to make a quick note of here as well is also that the windows and doors that you're using in the project don't need to be CI Tools Windows and Doors. You could have everything in here, in fact, being windows and doors from the default ArchiCAD library or from some other library that you have or something. Those will all schedule fine in here as well. So you don't need to be using all our windows and doors exclusively through your project. You can be using any at all, and vice versa as well. All of our windows and doors will work fine in the ArchiCAD scheduler also. So if you're using our windows and doors, you don't have to use this scheduler either. So it goes both ways. So the next thing I want to do is look at the collation option. So you can see at the moment, everything is separated out, even though some of these are quite similar to each other. Let's see if there's actually any that are the same. It looks like 212 over here. No, that's different. 214 and 204 are identical by the looks of it. So what we want to do with those is we want to collate those, because we don't need to show every single individual window or door. We can just show one of them and then say how many there are or something like that. So that's where that collation option that we saw before comes in. So I'll go back into my schedule manager and I'll turn on collating. So I'll tell it to collate matching items. And then we have a bunch of sub options here to allow us to essentially say don't collate certain things though. So we can say, for instance, with nothing turned on, it means that everything that matches will collate. But we can go through and we could say, actually, if everything is matching, but they have different pens and fills, I still want you to isolate them to make them all separate. If they have different materials, make them separate. If they have different orientation or handing, make them separate, and that sort of thing. So you can still break it up as much as you want to. But in our case, we're going to say, let's group everything. So I'll hit OK. It's going to ask me if I want to update, which I do. And then we'll just wait for that to generate and we'll have a look. All right, so looking back at this view here, you can see that everything else looking pretty much the same as before. But down here we have that window that we had 2 of, has been collated together. So 204 and 215 are both being held together. You can see that we also have 214, which looks the same to me at this point. Obviously is not the same in some way. Generally this will be because the wall that it's placed in is a different thickness, but there are different other factors to the window or door besides just what the elevation view looks like that can make them not collate together, so that will be what is happening here. But in our case 204 and 215 are identical, so those are being grouped together. So that's what the collate option does. We've also got a couple more options that we might want to look at as well. So if I go back into Schedule Manager again, we can go down and look at the rest of what we have going on in here. So the criteria was obviously choosing what we see in the actual schedule. The layout defines the shape of that piece of paper, basically, that it's fitting them all on. This will just show you a list of all of the masters that are in your project, and you can just make sure that it fits to whichever master you need, and you can define the margins for it here as well. Dimensions let us choose what is dimensioned in those elevation views. So by default, I have the overall, the shape and sash, which as notes here only apply to CI windows and doors, because shape and sash differentiation is not a thing that the default ArchiCAD windows and doors have. And then dimensioning the cell height as well, which you may remember we are in fact doing on our view there, so you can see the height to the cell. We can choose to show a datum label in here as well if we want to. We can turn on the rough opening if we want to. And we can also choose how the spacing works on dimensions, and also set how the dimensions look as well. So we could go through and change the pen color or something like that, and that will come through. Let's make that nice and obvious. And then the last part is the joinery item. So this is choosing how the actual elevations of the windows and doors will look in the schedule. So by default, we're going to be showing the exterior side of the windows and doors, but we do have the option to show the interior side or to just show both sides. So we can see both of those. If we do choose that option, we also get to choose how we label the interior exterior sides, how much space to set between them, so that will display that will be the gap in between the two elevations that we'll see. And then we'd also choose to shade the elevations as well. So I'll turn that on just so we can see that. And then we get to choose what else we want to show. So we're showing the element ID and the master ID at the moment. This isn't hot linked, so the master ID doesn't do anything in this case, but that would show there if we had that happening. Then we can also choose to show the type codes, the renovation status, and the total amount of items that are collated. So I'm going to turn those last two on, just so that we can see that. And the rest is stuff to do with how the fonts work, and also how the offsetting of the notes are and that sort of thing as well, which is relatively self-explanatory. So I'm going to hit OK. We'll let it update again, and then we'll see how our new schedule looks. All right, so we now have nice colors going on, obviously. I turned on the shaded option, so you can see that we have colors on all of our items now, and you can see that we have our interior and exteriors included together now. So going back to that one that had the collated items, here we go. So you can see now we're saying, because we told it to mention the renovation status, we're now saying existing. We say 2 items because there's 2 in this particular thing, but it will list as many as there are that are the same as each other, and then it lists the IDs as it did before. We still have our view with our dimensions on it as well, but then we also have our additional interior elevation as well, so that you can see what it looks like from the other side, basically. So it gives us a quite nice representation there. And then also we had our we turned on the option to dimension the datum level, which is what this wall base is doing here as well. It's showing us what this is dimensioned to. So you should be able to get these to display in the way that you might want them to look. And you can also see that the change to the font color that we did has also come through as well, and the little reddish change that we did to the notches on the dimension. So that's all come through as well. So that's the Windows and Doors schedules. We'll also look at doing some schedule notes. I'm just going to quickly check and see if we've got any questions before we move on. All right, looks like we don't have any questions just yet, so we'll move on to schedule notes. So if you are familiar with our keynotes tool already, this will probably look quite familiar to you. By design, we wanted to make it look similar so that you wouldn't have to learn a whole new way of doing things. But I'm going to go to my Doors and Windows tool, and I'm going to open the schedule notes palette. This will give us a floating palette which contains our schedule notes. At the moment there aren't any because I don't have any in this project, so I'm just going to quickly go through and make some. So these work similarly to how our keynotes tool does. Essentially it's just a list of notes that we can assign to the schedule so that we can show more information, and you can then go through and update the text in notes and have that flow through to all the places where those notes are placed. So let's make some new categories. We'll call this one Finish, Safety, and Glazing. And then we'll make some notes to go into those folders. Let's just create a handful here. So let's say aluminium. Okay. All right, so we've got a couple of notes there. So I'm going to grab aluminium and paint. Drag those into finish. Double, single, triple. Put those in glazing. And then we'll make some new notes. And we'll put those into safety. So this is a pretty good start with a list of notes. Obviously you'll have a bunch more options here, and you can do things like specifying a certain model and having the detail of that and that sort of thing as well. But we're just going to stick with this short list for now. And the way that we attach these notes is we simply select the windows or doors that we want to apply them to, and we just double click. So let's go over to our guys over here, 204 and 215, and we're going to define some notes here. So we'll say that these have the finish aluminium, and as soon as I double click that, you'll see that down below where it lists the schedule notes of the currently selected element, we now have aluminium showing inside the finish folder, and then you can see below my schedule item that we now are listing out those notes as well. So we've got finish aluminium, we're going to add double glazing, and we're going to show a deadlock and a sensor. And you'll see down below here that we have all of those things listed there. And they start with their folder first, and then they have the item there. So obviously you can have multiple folders with multiple items in them, and they will just stack up like that. So if I add triple glazing as well, which doesn't really make sense anymore, you'll see that those get grouped together, as do the safety ones. So we can go through our project and through our schedule and add notes to the window and door elements this way. When we do this, these are essentially being added to the windows and doors themselves. So if you were to open up a different window and door schedule, so if you generated a different window and door schedule, but they had the same windows in them, they would still show those same notes. So if I select one of these and I go hit this button here to actually select one of the windows, that will take me to a 3D view where I can see one of them. So select this one. If I have a look in the settings, I can go down to CI Tools Schedule Notes, and you'll see that the schedule notes I attached via the schedule are displaying here as well. So they're inherently part of this window. It knows what it has associated with it, and that's what's showing in our schedule. And this also means that we can go the other way as well. So if I find a different window, I go in here and I say, let me add paint white and deadlock, and then also add a custom note saying this is a if I can spell, different window. Hit OK there, and then jump back over to my schedule. I can't remember what the ID was. What we can do is we can update our schedule now just by hitting this button, and it will find the schedule notes that are attached to that window, even though we didn't do it in the schedule, because they're part of the window itself. it will still come through. Oh, here we go. Over here, so we've got this as a different window, and then we've got our 2 schedule notes added below that as well. So you can add them in either place, and they will come through to wherever you need them. And obviously, as you saw just then, we have this custom notes field as well. So this is useful for when you want to add a note to a particular window or door, but it's not in your database already, and you know that it's kind of a one-off. You don't necessarily want to add it to your database. You just want to show it on this item. You can just come in here and type up something quickly. So you can say, whatever it is, and then that will show as well directly below the list there. So you have plenty of control over how much or little you want to see there. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you with the schedule notes is that you can also use schedule notes that work like Autotext. So I just open up, this is an article in our knowledge base, which hopefully is coming through on the screen share, okay? But this contains a list. If you go to our knowledge base and go to Doors and Windows, under reference guide, there's an article called Autotext Schedule Notes, and this has a list of everything that's available. We won't go through all of these because there's quite a lot, but we can include some sort of smart notes in it this way. So what I'll do is I will grab some of these. So we've got total area and daylight area. Let's get those, and let's throw the U value in as well while we're at it. So I'll open up my schedule notes here. I'll create some a new category called calculations, and then we'll add some new notes. So I'm going to describe what it is, and then we'll put in the field for it. So total area is just total and area. And angle brackets. So we've got that one. And then we'll say val. Okay, hit OK there. And then let's go over to, let's stick with the same one because we've been doing that for a while. Let's get rid of the nonsense extra bit there, and then we'll add some calculations. So we'll add these two here. So we've got the area of window and the U value of item, and you can see that when I add those, it fills in the details there. So area of window 2.43, U value of item 0.40. So you can easily add in all of that stuff that was available there, and we can also check that this is actually what it says it is. So let's go back and select that element, and if I have a look in the settings for the window, under the schedule options, you can see here that the calculated data, this is where it's picking those numbers up from. So the total area is indeed 2.43, and the U value is indeed 0.4, so that's accurate there. And we can also, if you need to, manipulate the way that that works as well, how it is generating those values. So you can see the total area being 2.43 here, but we could say, for instance, this panel here is being calculated as ventilation plus clear glazing. If we say that actually this one shouldn't be included in the daylight area, for instance, let's say that this one's actually ventilation only, you'll see that that number immediately drops the daylight area. So we can control that if we need to make it show the right things. If the window tool has guessed wrong as to what you think it should be contributing towards in terms of calculation, you can override that here by going and selecting the piece that you want to modify, and then overriding that there, and that will feed through to the values that are shown in the Autotext type notes. So that is the Door and Windows schedule notes, and that's available from Doors and Windows schedule notes palette. All right, that is everything I wanted to look at today. I'm just going to quickly check and see if any more questions have come in. If I do this, should be able to see that. Okay, D001. is rebated of the overall height. What's this? Okay. So it's rebated by 20 mil here. We can see being dimensioned there, 1980. And then this dimension shows us the full height, including the 20, with the 25 on top for the top frame, and then the final dimension is the overall full size of it. I'm not sure. Not sharing my screen. I'll get back to you on that one because I'm not 100% sure what bit it is that it is not doing right. Yeah, it looks, from what I can see, it looks like it's doing the right thing, but I'll get in touch with you on a support ticket to figure out what it is it's doing wrong, because not 100% sure on what is going on there. But yes, sorry to everyone else. Just had a question about something to do with the overall dimension of one of the doors in the schedule. But yeah, I'll follow up and find out what's going on there. And if we do figure out what is happening in the next session, I'll talk about that. That does remind me, sorry, before I finish, this also will be the last webinar of the year. We are finishing for the year on next Tuesday, on the 24th. So we will still be available for technical support up until then, and then over the holiday break we'll be available for technical support, although there will only be a handful of people here doing that, a skeleton staff we like to call it for some reason. So you can still contact us if you have any problems or questions at that time. It may just be a little bit slower than usual, and then we'll be back on deck next year on the 13th. So the first Thursday after that, we'll be back into these webinars. But yeah, for now, that is it for me for this year. Thanks very much for attending all of the times that you have, and bearing with my technical difficulties. And yeah, I hope you have a great holiday, and we'll see you in the new year. Thanks, everyone.